Hello and welcome to the Argyle AI Leadership Summit. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we will turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, we would like to take a moment to thank today's sponsors, Adobe and SAP. Our sponsors are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag ArgyleDigital and follow us at Argyle Exec Forum. Also, be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I would also like to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we have curated based on the feedback we have received over the years from our members. We have worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the sessions today, and we truly appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we would love to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. Following each presentation, we have set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Thank you again for joining us. Now let's get started. Without further ado, I would love to introduce Niraj Patel, Head of AI and Digital Ops at Greystone & Co. We are excited to have Niraj with us for his opening keynote titled AI Enterprise, Defining the Best Areas for Implementation. Welcome, Niraj, and over to you.
Hey, thank you so much. And Argyle, you have an amazing forum, and thank you to the sponsors. So excited to tell you our story and journey. AI has been the hot topic for a little bit since the last 18, 19 months, thanks to OpenAI and ChatGPT. But what does that mean? How do you make it valuable? How do you implement it? How do you get adoption? All these questions are swirling around in everybody's head, as well as how to make this work. So hopefully I'll tell you a story today of how we were able to deploy that in Greystone successfully and go through some of our history, story, some rules of the road that work, and hopefully that information helps you be successful in your implementations of AI journey. Biggest thing you'll always hear is human in the loop, and AI and human in the loop is really, really relevant. I have to tell you a story about when I got started in AI early 2012 with machine learning and deep learning. And that whole concept of human in the loop was just starting to evolve. And the first implementation was put into a large commercial building. And we had building engineers and the technology. And you can see how the building engineers started to interact with the technology and how long did it take them to kind of say, oh, I trust the AI engine's predictions and I want to go with its recommendations right away. History, if history is a telling tale, it took roughly about 14 months before the end user really accepted the results really well and just let the AI engine predict and do what it needed to do. So I can't tell everybody enough that you must keep the human in the loop in this process, and that is going to make the adoption very valuable. With that, hey, can't have any of these technology discussions without a Gartner slide or two. I think all of us have probably heard amount of projects that are failing in Gen AI, projects that are successful. Also in this fast-paced environment, decision-making is becoming more complex. How do I keep up with all these things? Where do I put my energy investments, my team's energy investments to ensure success? So I just wanted to lay that out as these benchmarks that are put out. 76% of people have said that this decision-making process has gotten so complex. Also, by 2026, as you can tell from the slide, the AI initiatives will harness more AI agents as it evolves more and more. Can't have another presentation without the hype cycle. We all know the hype cycle is what has worked. It's followed all new technologies that have come out, from the internet to mobile to all those devices that have been implemented in the world. Big question always today is, where are we in this cycle? Where are we going to be? Where is it headed? And this slide kind of shows where the general consensus is. We're kind of at past that early adopter stage, some negativity coming out, specifically with ownerships and other issues that are popping up. But we do know that we want to get through this hype cycle to, as Gartner or other people say, that plateau productivity that comes out as we come out of this. What is really important is as you pick projects, based on the projects you pick, you'll be able to avoid the ups and downs of the cycle and kind of go to where high value, high productivity, and those implementations become highly, highly valuable that you can build upon. I know all of us have seen this many times, but it's always great to see it in action of a new technology like Gen AI. Key factors. This is where it gets really interesting. So some of the lessons learned we have is in order to get through the hype cycle to go to successful implementations, there's two key principles we learned. AI is not software. Really, really good discipline to have. Don't think about it from the old traditional fashion to do implementation of software. This is highly interactive, highly human in the loop, highly augmented. The next piece is really important, that know your workflow. The best implementations are implementations that are helping automate the workflows of the current consumer journey, employee journey, any journey that you have in your product, and how it augments the human in getting that workflow done faster, more accurately, and more concise, and really enable that human to really focus on bigger items that are really, really important. These things are always different, but knowing your workflow is really, really going to drive a lot of adoption. The crazy thing is when you think about workflow, every company has a slightly different workflow. So it's not like you can take a generic workflow and say, hey, use this basic workflow for all implementations. You have a good skeleton of a workflow, and you're going to have to adopt it to your environment. These two lessons learned, if you use them in all of your thought processes as you're thinking about implementing AI, it will help you immensely get successful use cases and successful paths to building blocks of the future. So as more and more capability comes out, you're able to harness that capability and deploy the value within your organization. You cannot have a discussion on AI without somebody asking you about ROI, specifically when it comes from the business. Hey, what is the return on investment on this? How will this either give me operational efficiency, aka reduce my cost, or grow my revenue? How do you measure those things? How do you have alignment of goals with the business and ways to measure that impact and establish KPIs? Operational efficiency really is a lot easier to measure than anything else. Most of our use cases that we have been able to successfully deploy have been on that side of the equation today. And it's much easier with time saved, how you measure, what were the hours saved. And this is not just IT in the back end trying to come up with these numbers. The way we've thought through this is really aligned with the business stakeholders, the people that are doing the task every day, calculating the time, putting together the savings, getting their agreement of what it was, but then not stopping there, actually take it to the next level. So all of our workflows that are AI enabled or automated, we actually have a real-time dashboard. So people can go to the intranet of the company, see what these workflows are, see how often they've run, who's running them, a description of them. It is really, really important to have that feedback loop because now you can see and measure the ROI that's coming out of the platform. And every time you get to add a new workflow, you're getting to put that right in there. Now, the true value on the revenue side is going to come in many different formats. It's a little bit harder to measure, but it will bring a lot more value to the company as people focus more on that revenue side of it. Is it going to be, how do I help my sales force take a better perspective on a prospective client? Or can I help them really focus on the deals that will get closed versus the deals that will not get closed? Those are just things that we learned along our journey. But ROI is something you want to address right up front as you are thinking about those workflows. So stepping back, hype cycle, what makes sense, choose the items that will give you the highest value through the workflows that you know will make the most sense. And then how do you get that alignment of goals, the outcomes that you're looking for? How do you measure them? And then create a real-time dashboard to get that value going. If you that follow through on that back end, meaning that real-time piece is really important. I can't stress that enough. That actually built a lot more momentum for us at Greystone than the actual technology. So that dashboard really got people excited, got people thinking about this, and saw who was using it within the company and actually how would they like to use it. Next, value from AI. This is always the most interesting thing, as we touched on the ROI piece of it. There's many, many different ways to kind of understand your workflow. Where do you implement this? And where does this make sense? This becomes highly, highly important in many different ways. So I can't stress enough, really, really know your workflow and then get the basics right. Where is the data? How will this data get organized? We were fortunate. In the financial services industry in commercial real estate. About 70 to 80% of our data comes in PDFs and unstructured format, and the rest is we get electronically that we have in a structured environment. So we know a lot of document processing has to happen. Today, we can't just rely on basic document processing. We have to go deeper and deeper and take all the data and how to use that as more valuable data versus just the basic information. You got to identify the bottlenecks. What's slowing it down? How can I do things in a parallel manner versus a serial manner? I'll give you an example. In our industry, we have an individual looking for a loan. Let's say it's a $25 million loan on a real estate. We start off with two pieces of documents we get, a rent roll and a trailing 12 financials. And today, a human basically takes those and analyzes those and see what the product pricing, what the fit will be. The way we've implemented our implementation, as soon as those documents come in, they're already being processed. But we look at the next 3, 4, 5 steps and then kind of bring that forward and put that together in a real-time basis. So now at the state of inquiry, we're able to take 4, 5, 6 steps to guide our sales folks to say, hey, look, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? Where will this work? Where will this not work? All those pieces kind of come up front, but in a very parallel processing way. It's just the way it kind of goes and makes life so much easier. And because you want to get the ROI right, you want to pick the right use cases. I can't mention that enough. The use cases will drive you towards that plateau of productivity and kind of miss the hype cycle. Not to say that your business won't ask you to do things in the hype cycle. Ours did too. We had a chatbot that we rolled out right away. What we found was utilization was light. Some of the things that we thought people would use it for didn't. We even created digital twins for a while just to see if that would get people more engaged with it. But what we found was embedding in the workflows was the highest level of adoption and engagement that we were able to receive. And that's what drove us into this direction. So how do you make this happen? You've probably all heard this many times, leadership buy-in. Well, how do you get leadership buy-in? We actually sent some of our executives to the MIT AI class, the strategy class. As they were going through, they learned a little bit more how to look at AI, how to adopt AI. So they got those basic skill sets on AI, not to the technical level that the technology teams have, but at a high level and a good understanding. Then we were able to take those team members that went through that process and really work with all the players in the company, go down to the people, everybody that was doing the work, from an analyst to an underwriter, what kind of things they were doing, what were the really mundane tasks, how crazy was it? I'll give you an example. We have up to 7 third-party reports that come in. So when you're doing a loan, you have you have 7 different companies providing you 7 different analysis and information on that property. You probably heard of appraisal reports, property inspections, engineering reports, PCAs. These could be 100 pages, 1,800 pages, and a underwriter has to go through and review these not just for sanity, those are all things that are important, but also consistency over those documents. You can't have square footage or number of parking spots be a one number on one of the reports and a different number on the second report. So an underwriter today used to have to go through these pages to come up with those 22 fields that have to be consistent. And how do you kind of do that? And what were the ways to get around that? Now we have an AI engine that does that. It reviews all of them, generates the spreadsheet with all the differences, and actually helps them generate the email to send out to the third party to ensure that that is reconciled. And then you get to rerun it again, right? So saving 40 minutes, saving 50 minutes, saving an hour. We have about 21 of these workflows embedded into our processes today. Saving varies from the deal size, saving somewhere between 8 hours to 16 hours per deal, which is amazing. The other thing I wanted to touch on this, as you go through this journey, as we went through this journey, yes, we started with education, we got the meaningful use cases, we had some good oversight. Then we kind of plateaued out. We were able to get 6 done really rapidly. This was how do you kind of work with people, see what use cases work, being technologists, know where you can apply it, and then roll it out. And we found that we plateaued because the alignment and the domain interest or the domain knowledge that's required for AI implementations is far greater than just a pure, simple RPA or technology deployment. Because of that, we got together with the business, created this digital operations team concept. You can call it many things. In the old days, we might have called it Center of Excellence, but the problem with Center of Excellence is it was more tech-centric, where the digital operations team is more business and domain knowledge-centric. And this got us to propel and accelerate our deployments even more. This team became our pivotal point to do parallel testing, tuning the engines, as well as analyzing the payback periods, getting the ROI right. We also empowered the team to rewrite their job descriptions, change the workflows with the new AI-enabled workflows, and really, really bring that value to the table. So I know it's a journey, and I know all of you will go through that same journey, but hopefully these insights will give you ways that when you have a slowdown or when you need to pivot, here's some new tools that we've deployed that really made a difference. So that digital operations team is 15 people, all business, working with the technology staff today. And that's what's really cool about it. Next, workflow over technology. As we were walking through the workflows, we noticed that every individual uses these tools in a slightly different manner. Because we're in financial services, because we're in commercial real estate, we're highly, highly dependent on office tools still. All of our underwriting is done on spreadsheets, and that's a common factor in the industry today. So we started thinking about architecting these things in a way that this makes a big difference. We did not want to have the customer have to come to the way we wanted them to use the technology. We actually took the technology and made it the way they would like to use it. Some of our customers, some of our analysts like to use it through Teams. Hey, call these AI engines right through Teams, which is perfectly fine. Initiate it right from there. Some of the users actually wanted to call it from Salesforce. No worries. Let's go through it. Next one was, hey, I want it from email. No worries. So as you architect and implement AI, I keep saying, do not think about that technology as much because the technology is evolving so much. But really, really look at that workflow. How do you want that to be called? How does that customer want it to be called? We would always love it to be the same way, but the work, the AI work is what we want consistency, not where it's being called from and not the output that we want. So thanks to generative AI, we're able to have many input points. We're able to have many output points. We can create the output just the way the consumer wants it. Most of the workflows that we deployed, AI generated ones, actually take the data from those documents, the key critical points that we need, and put it directly into the spreadsheets that are really important. Um, I can't I can't emphasize that adoption rate, and that adoption rate really, really is important. And this was a way to really increase our adoption rate. Because of this, we were able to drive a lot of uses. I think there's up to 250 people today using these technologies or using these AI functions today. Ah, with a lot of these things, us being in a regulated environment, we always need to think about how to navigate these emerging trends, but what are ways to get adoption not only within the company, but also within the ecosystem? We rely a lot on government entities like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD. And as we were making our Gen AI processes, we actually brought them into the discussions very early on before we ever deployed. Where would they like the human in the loop? Where would they like that analysis to happen? And where do they want the certification coming from the human in the loop? So based on your ecosystem and what's important, I greatly encourage you to bring that in right up front. Because you bring that up front, it actually helps with the adoption internally. A lot of our underwriters, the first question was, will Fannie accept this or will Freddie Mac accept this? Because we brought them in early into the process in that collaboration, they were so happy that we did that, and they were kind of calm and said, yes, that makes sense. If the agencies are okay with this, that means we should be okay. And where do they want that to happen? So I encourage everyone, if you can do that, please, that's going to help you with adoption and implementation a lot more, but also really refining that use case that's highly valuable and what's going to be the most relevant for your company. Results, benefits, these are different ways to measure. How do you get these pieces going? Don't get me wrong, you're going to have your own different approaches and how it works in your world. Um, I know we're going to be running out of time and give you some time for question and answers. I have to tell you a story, and you're going to love the story. Um, Adoption is always the most important thing, and one of my greatest mentors is an 82-year-old gentleman, Kurt. And I have coffee with him at least on a quarterly basis to really get a sanity check of what's important, what's not important. And this time, when I met him at the Starbucks, I actually took one of those Meta glasses and had him try it out. And I love to see how people are able to utilize this new technology and the AI engines behind it. The first thing he asked me was, well, what do I ask it? I said, it's easy, just ask it where you are. And he did. He said, hey, Meta, where am I? And I said, oh, you're in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania. He's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I said, yeah, but it gets even better. I said, why don't you ask it to read you the menu? And he did. So he basically looked up at the menu and he asked Meta, can you read me the menu? And it read him the menu. And elderly need reading glasses. So he was like, wow, this is great. I can see how I can use this in my daily life, let alone language translation. We were talking about many different things. But I love the fact that when we can get people to really embrace this new way of doing things, not only the younger generation, look, our kids, they'll always use this stuff. But where do we get the mainstream, the people that don't want to change, really see the value and kind of drive that? hopefully that example kind of shows you what's going on and our journey so far. But I got to tell you, please watch the hype cycle. Go to that plateau of productivity. If you take away those things and workflow, if you stay with those, you'll always win. With that, Brittany, I know we got a lot of, I don't know if we have questions, but would love to hand it back to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Neeraj, for such an insightful presentation. We do have plenty of time to review a couple questions. This first question, in what ways have you seen companies use AI to directly improve operational efficiency across different departments?
So that's a great question. If you have a common workflow, what happens is you can take that workflow and kind of embrace it through the process. So as you get more value through that process. So our situation was the same. We have multiple different business units. FHA unit, we have a Fannie unit, a Freddie unit. They operate slightly differently. First, we were able to take some of the common things that they all did, like that third-party affiliation we talked about. That was what was kind of got people to use it. And also that flexibility to let them call it from anywhere. So one of our divisions used Salesforce, the other one didn't. So give them that value. And that's how we were able to do it. To go to the next level, we did a task mining exercise where people were we were recording keystrokes and seeing where the overlap was. And we're in that phase today to implement.
Perfect. Thank you. This next question, first of all, they say thank you so much for an interesting discussion. Curious on the adoption rates. Was there an implicit push towards a certain goal, or was it a more organic adoption, as it seems to be the case? And and what are your thoughts on the effectiveness of the former approach?
So we did an organic approach. We wanted them to feel ownership of these things. And that's what really helped with that digital operations team. Before that digital operations team, we were kind of having IT go out and show people what to do. Once the digital operations team was put together, they were actually revered as leaders in their workflow. So an underwriter that was respected in the company. And that's what really helped with that organic side. So if you can do that, I think that's going to be your best way. Unfortunately, inorganic or trying to force it without a good carrot and stick approach, I think it may be an uphill battle.
Great, thank you. And we have time for at least a couple more questions. This next question, they do say thank you again for the excellent presentation, and that it's great that you've involved regulators. But as a company, what governance have you implemented for ethical and human-centric AI?
So we're ensuring that we're having the right ethical approach and a human-centric approach by picking the use cases that allow that. We're not allowing our implementations or our workflow implementations to go directly to the consumer. We're actually working within the organization. Also, predefined workflows. So what I mean by that is we know what documents we're putting into the engine, like the appraisal reports and things like that. We know what work we want to have done, make sure that these information is accurate, make sure it's consistent, make sure that, and then produce the output. So that's how we're ensuring that ethical, as well as ensure that we're not getting into any of those situations. So those use cases, if you can get good controlled use cases like I just described, it's a winner.
Thank you. And I think we have one last question that we could squeeze in. Um, Apologies, one second.
Hmm?
And I think this is a good question just to kind of close out with. So, as AI technology continues to evolve, what future trends do you foresee playing a pivotal role in business transformation?
The most pivotal role is helping your team, not only the IT team, but the business, to really unwind their traditional thinking and the traditional mindset. Um, Most of us have been trained to be very, as I call, very structured in nature. We're engineers at heart. We were taught structure. And as you get into implementations of AI, it's less structure. It's more how and what I can get done with this tool. And it's far greater than what we think it is. So we're going to have to work with the business and people and our teams to unwind some of that thinking and really show them the potential of the future. It's almost like you got this amazing group of people that you can ask any questions anytime. And they could be very controlled, they can be very positive in nature. And how do you make sure that you're not limiting AI, that AI is not limiting you, but you're not limiting AI?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Niraj. That is all the time we do have for questions. But thank you so much again for such an incredible keynote. I also want to thank everyone else who joined us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following the event. Our next session will begin shortly at 11:35 Eastern, which will be a panel titled Using AI to Lower Costs, Concrete Examples and Real Talk. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much, Niraj.
Thank you.